Welcome to Live Courageously podcast show number 18 of 2023. I'm your host, John Duffy, and this is the 34th live Live Courageously podcast show since I started the show a year and a half ago. If you haven't seen the previous 33 podcasts with some of my amazing, courageous friends sharing their powerful stories of overcoming all odds and going on to live powerful lives and making a difference in the world, you can watch them on John Duffy Live Courageously YouTube channel. And I have another 75 plus friends planned to be guests on my future show. So please subscribe to my Live Courageously YouTube channel at Duff Square Film and keep coming back every Sunday at 2 p.m. Well, today's show wasn't planned, and I thought I was going to cancel the show because I'm in pre-production on a feature film that Bo Brinkman is directing in Alpharetta, Georgia. And I hadn't lined up a guest for the show. But as we were hanging out, he started to share some stories with me from his life, and I knew he was the perfect guest for this week's show. So today, my friend and guest is Bo Brinkman, and Bo is someone who has lived a very adventurous and courageous life. Born in Houston and raised in Pasadena, Texas, Bo graduated 2 years early from high school and left home. He backpacked to Hilo, Hawaii, and lived in a tent for several months, surviving on papaya, coconuts, and fish that he speared off the coast. He also worked as an iron worker while studying theater at the Texas State University and later at the University of Houston. His first year in New York, Bo discovered an unused basement under a restaurant in Greenwich Village, built a 60-seat theater, and founded the Cactus Theater. During that time, Bo produced, directed, and acted in almost 30 plays. Company members and special guests included people like James Gandolfini, Melissa Gilbert, Susan Aston, Penn Jillette of Penn and Teller, D.B. Sweeney, and Will Hare. Bo's play Ice House, the first play in his house trilogy, was first produced at the Cactus Theater and had a successful 9-month run at the Henry Wyatt Theater on the Lower East Side. Ice House was also produced in Los Angeles at the Company of Characters Theater. Bo also directed it there. He later wrote the screenplay adaptation, produced, starred, and directed Second Unit when Ice House was made into a feature film. His play, The Hen House, was also developed at the Cactus Theater and later produced off-Broadway at the Howard Clurman Theater in New York. Bay House, Bo's last installment of the House trilogy, was developed at the Actors Studio in New York and produced at the Bond Theater, 500-seat theater in Augusta, Michigan. Bo became a lifetime member of the Actors Studio in 1988 and was also a member of the Playwrights Directors Unit of the studio, where he wrote and developed such plays as Card Shark, Presido, The Godmugger, and Beirut Barfly. He moved to LA in 1990 and jumped into film work, including supporting roles in such films as Bail Jumper, Laws of Deception, which he also co-produced, and Occupational Hell, Avenging Angel, Face of the Serpent, which Bo also co-produced. He played opposite Martin Sheen in the movie Gettysburg and later reprised the same role opposite Robert Duvall in the Civil War epic Gods and Generals. But all that is his acting and his directing and his playwriting career. But there's another side to Bo, and that's kind of what I found out when we were hanging out, when he had told me some stories about when he traveled and lived in the Sudan during the second Civil War that was going on. And we're going to explore that today as well. And I think you're going to find it as fascinating as I did. So with that, let me welcome Bo to the show, and thank you, Bo, for being part of it. And I thank you for having me on this movie to help you line produce it.
Thank God you're with us.
Well, it's been a fun. We've been here a week, and we've had a great fun time, and it's going to be challenging. But then again, I got a feeling that everything you're involved in is always a little bit of challenge there. Am I wrong?
Yeah. Right. Somehow we make it through.
Exactly. Well, I got two questions for you that I always like to open the show because one is how did we meet? When do you remember when we actually met the first time?
Well, through our friend Mark Bovey. But we worked on, didn't we work on a reason? Weren't you on a show that we were both in? We were in a movie together, but we didn't know each other.
And you're funny that you mentioned that because that was something I just realized as I was doing the research for this show. And that was this thing right here.
Bail Jumper. Yeah.
Bail Jumper. I didn't remember that we had acted together in a movie. And that was back in New York. And that's why I asked you today, without telling you, that it screened at the Angelica Theater
Angelica. Mm-hmm.
in the Lower East Side in Manhattan. And that was the first time for me that I'd ever seen myself on a big screen. And it freaked me out, man. I was totally freaked out by it. But I played like, I think, a truck driver who, I forget the actual scene. But yeah, we both acted in that back in the, when was that? That was probably.
Was that the 80s?
Yeah, man, it must have been the 80s.
88 or 89?
Yeah.
Or maybe even earlier. Yeah.
But I don't know if we were actually on set at the same time, or I don't know if you got a chance to go to that screening at the Angelica.
No, I was there.
So we were both there at the screening and did not actually get to know or meet each other.
In our 20s.
Yeah. And then
Early 30s, yeah.
many years later, I mean, this is wild. It's blowing my mind. But and then we met with I think at the Magic Castle with Marcus Bovey, who introduced us at that point. And then we also ended up when you had a screening of your film Last Man's Club in DC, and during the GI Film Festival, we hung out there as well.
Yes, that was fun.
Yeah. And we'll take a look at a trailer from the Last Man's Club. It was a very cool film, so we're going to get a chance to look at that. The audience is going to look at that in a minute. Cool. The other question I always like to ask, and here in your life, besides going to Hawaii and then working as an iron worker and then, creating this theater and then going on to, obviously they'll hear later, going on to the Sudan. What does Live Courageously mean to you?
Well, I mean, you can't be a fearful person and live courageously, or even live, just live. I mean, being fearful is a horrible state to be in. And I see it a lot. My faith gets me through everything that I want to try and achieve, or try and or do, not attempt, but do. I can't imagine going through life without faith. I mean, that sounds pretty scary to me. So that's what it is for me. I try to, as a kid and onward, I've tried to achieve goals and dreams. A goal to me is a dream with a deadline, and my faith gives me the energy and the fearlessness to be courageous. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. It does. And to go back a little bit, how did you go on the journey, from growing up in a small, in Texas, to go on to become a creative person, to go on that journey to become a playwright, an actor? What was that? What drove you down that path in your life? What was it?
I think it's the always the grain of sand that cultures the pearl. I grew up in a blue collar neighborhood. All the fathers had bought these little tract brick veneer homes on the GI Bill after World War II. And my dad's threat to me was, well, if you don't get an education and do something, you're going to wind out at the refinery with me. Is that what you want? And I was like, no, I was the first kid to venture off my block. I got bored with all the stuff going on my block, baseball and all that. I loved it, but I started venturing off the block when I was about 6 or 7 years old, and I haven't stopped. I'm still venturing off the block.
Well, it's your life has definitely been adventurous, and of all of it, is there, you wrote plays, you acted, you directed plays, then you moved on from the world of theater into the world of movie and feature films and also documentaries. But what was the difference for you in those two worlds? Was there one that you liked more than others, or was it just another adventure and another experience of growth?
Oh, I miss theater. I really couldn't make a living in theater, but I loved it. It's true to my heart. There's nothing like doing a play and creating that. I just slowly got interested in film. It's a great medium because, a play is like a vapor. It evaporates, after the show's over, it's never again. A film, will last hopefully forever, for a long time. So that's another reason why I just do film now. So,
But love in theater, like you said, I mean, the difference, and I've acted in theater back in New York before I came out here and did what I did, and also film. It's a different kind of experience, right? It's a different kind of acting. It just feels so much different than working as an actor in a film.
Absolutely. It's more gratifying, actually. It's much more gratifying doing a play as an actor or even directing. I mean, it is so gratifying to hone the work every day, and you can really find your craft there in theater. I feel bad for these kids that they all want to be Tarantino now. They all want to be filmmakers and stuff, and they skip all that stuff and go straight to film school, and then they learn all the technical stuff and everything. They don't know how to talk to actors. They don't know how to direct actors. You have to be in theater to get it, And all the old guys, like Shane Black and these guys, they were all theater majors. They studied theater and then went into film.
Well, what do you bring? Obviously, because you've had that varied experience, Bo. Directing actors as a director in a film. Having that experience from theater, how do you work with actors? And this is for people who are, in the film industry or directors just hearing this, what's kind of unique about the way you try and work with actors, knowing that you've been on both sides of it. You've been the actor, you've been the director, you have a knowledge of all the pieces.
I help them find the layers in their character. So many auditions that I watch are just people learning their lines, and there's no thought behind no decisions made in even in any of the dialogue. They're so connected to the words. They're holding on to the words way too much, and they haven't made choices about what they're saying. So theater really teaches you, and what I've learned is how to add layers in an actor's performance and to help them make some decisions about the character that becomes an action, right? A choice has to be an action, in a character when you're building a character. So, and those are the things that you learn in theater. You're never going to get them in film school. It's never going to happen. So that's what I've taken away from theater. And I've seen it happen with other friends of mine that are directors that have theater background. It's fascinating stuff to watch. I can remember during Gods and Generals, Ron Maxwell was directing. I was sitting behind the camera with him on the monitor, and Bobby Duvall did a small monologue, and we both at the same time went, like. It was good. It was almost perfect. You could have cut and print, but there was something missing from it. So I watched Ron go over there and whisper something in his ear, and Duvall goes, "I can't play that." And he goes, "Oh," said something else. He goes, and you could see the light come on in this old man's eyes. He just went ding. And I've never seen such a different performance in my life. And just one word set him in another direction. And so I asked Maxwell after that, I said, "What the hell did you say?" I waited until after we were off set. And I said, "What did you say to him?" Oh my God, I've never seen anything like it. He said, "Well, I wanted him to be, forget the word, exuberant or something about his monologue that he was saying, because he's supposed to have made a decision about crossing into trying to go to DC and come in from the back." And he said, "Try to be zealous about it." And he goes, "I can't play zealous." And then he went, "Joyful about your decision." So in that one word, boom.
Triggered him emotionally.
Yeah, and he took it and ran with it,
Right.
And you can do that with, good actors. You can give them just a word or two. Others you have to coax a little bit, but to help them find the layers in their character, and it makes all the difference in the world.
Now, did you study, like, when I was studying, I studied a lot of different schools of thought and acting. Obviously, there's a lot of different things that you can study. Did you kind of key in on any particular version that was working for you, or did you study a lot of different acting techniques? What was your
I studied with Robert Lewis,
uh-huh.
who was a founding member of the Actors Studio. Um, I I even went to a couple of seminars on biomechanics, um, uh, and then of course I was at the Actors Studio for years, and that's from the Stanislavski
Right.
stuff. So I got a bunch of a little bits and pieces of all of it, and I just took what like Bobby Lewis always just like learn it and forget it, learn it and forget about it. So because you can also be so fixed in your study and what you're studying that it just shows in your acting.
Right. You get trapped into that
Right.
that style, as opposed to, right,
Oh
being
yeah.
authentic and being real. I mean, I
Right,
know I
right.
studied with HB Studios in New York, and then I studied Meisner, and I studied a bunch of other things, Michael Chekhov, and a bunch of different techniques. But you're right. You find what works, and then you forget about it and use it.
Oh, did you go to on Bank Street? That place on Bank Street in the Village?
Yeah, HB Studios. That's when they were. Yeah, yeah.
Are they still there? I bet they are. I guess they
I
are.
don't know. I forget Uda Hagen was there.
Buddha.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Uda was there when I was studying,
famous.
and yeah, some famous acting teachers, and that's kind of where I started out. Never expected to act. That was the last thing on my agenda, and next thing I know, I was studying acting, and there you go.
I love it.
I went down the journey like you, man. But let's pivot. Let's pivot. You moved out to LA. You moved into film. You obviously acted in film. Tell us a little bit about some of the acting that you did in film, and then I want to pivot you over to directing some of the movies that you directed, so I can share those with the audience.
Yeah, sure. Well, the acting part will be really brief. No, I just, I had an agent. I went out and I got a few roles, and I missed out on a few roles that would have changed my life. And then after I lost a couple of those, I just was like, okay, I am not so, I'm just not a megalomaniac narcissist. So, I think I would have gone a lot further had I been, but I just don't care.
I said the same thing. I said I wasn't crazy enough to pursue it. I just wasn't.
Fanatic, yeah. But I had some, like I got left behind on what is the Vietnam War movie. I got cast in it. Oliver Stone cast me twice in the film. It got shelved one year. The next year I went back in. I got it again, and I got left behind. And then 10 years later, I'm sitting on a hill and doing God's Gettysburg, and I'm talking to Tom Berenger, and I told him about the experience. He goes, "Oh no, that was you? You were the guy that got left behind?" And I'm like, "Yes." What was it? With Charlie Sheen, Tom Berenger, the war movie.
I can't remember it. I can't remember it. But you acted in Gettysburg, correct?
Yeah.
So let's
Gettysburg, Gods and Generals.
let's. I think we have a little video of you in Gettysburg. Let's put that up.
Fun. Yeah.
Let's watch that. Whoops.
That was good. That was nice and quick.
I know.
Tabler, good morning to you, sir.
Morning, sir.
Good morning, Major Taylor.
Will the general have some breakfast?
No, thank you.
We have flapjacks in small mountains, fresh butter, bacon, wagons of ham, apple butter, ripe cherries. Really ought to pitch in, sir. Courtesy of our host, the great Commonwealth of Pennsylvania.
We strike hard, and we must strike quickly. What artillery is that, Major?
Don't know, sir. General Heath is in front.
My instructions were clear?
Yes, sir. To all commanders, avoid contact with the enemy until the army is all up and concentrated.
And General Heath?
He has instructions not to force a major action. I told him myself this morning.
We should move closer to the front and send for General Heath. I must know what is going on.
Yes, sir.
Major Taylor, have Traveler saddled up. I want to have a look around for myself.
Yes, sir.
General Heath?
Sir, beg to report.
Yes.
Very strange, sir. The situation is very confused.
What's happened?
Well, sir, I moved in this morning as directed. I thought it was only a few militia, but it...
I must have all possible information on the enemy's strength. Major Taylor.
Sir.
I want you to ride forward yourself to the highest position and observe, and do be careful.
Yes, sir.
General Rhodes attacking up there, and Panda and I, we have 3 divisions, sir. We can switch them.
Hey, General, sir, I saw only 2 Federal Corps, 1st and 11th. And General, I saw Early's lead columns coming down north of Rhodes' lines. He'll be engaged any minute, sir.
So we've got 20,000 infantry coming down almost behind the Union lines. It's perfect, sir.
God's will.
General, it would appear the fight is already underway.
General Panda begs to report that the enemy is falling back, sir. They're on the run.
Very well, Lieutenant.
Sir, General Early says the enemy's caved in on the left flank and are heading back through Gettysburg. They're all running.
Very well, thank you, Corporal. Henry? Sir. I want you to find General Hill's chief of artillery.
Yes, sir.
Tell him I want fire placed on that hill, as much fire as possible.
Yes, sir.
Very well. Major Taylor?
Yes, sir.
I want you to deliver this message in person. Find General Ewell. Tell him the Federal troops are withdrawn in confusion. It is only necessary to push those people in order to gain possession of those heights. Tell him to take that hill if...
All right. I'm not sure. It may go on for a while longer.
Please cut it off.
So that must brought back some memories for sure. But I figured at that point, it's on for a little bit longer. We're going to remove that and move on. But hey, so you did that years ago.
Yeah.
And there's a line in there that you mentioned, flapjacks. And
Oh, yeah. Mhm.
tell me about that. Tell us about that.
Okay, so I live about 6 months out of the year in Gettysburg, and still, I mean, I've been there for about 3 or 4 years, but there's a lot of tourists. About 2.5 million people come through Gettysburg a year. It's a destination, in the East Coast, and so people. I'll be walking down the street or be at the Farnsworth House. People walk up to me and say, "Oh my God, flapjacks in small mountains." I'm like, "Yep." And like, "Oh, it's like it's pretty hilarious." I mean, my sister and her husband came to visit. And I said, "Hey, listen, it was Remembrance Day, that Lincoln's address, and it's huge, And I said, don't be surprised if I have to stop and take pictures with people." And they're like, "What? Come on, are you kidding?" I'm like, "Nope, serious." And I mean, like every 10 feet, I was like signing autographs and taking pictures of people. Reminds me of like when Grandpa, from the Munsters opened that little place on Bleecker Street. And he was always taking pictures with people walking down the sidewalk.
Well, this is the poster from the movie, right? Right here.
Yeah.
So obviously people know you from that, but
Yeah.
and then you just recently, because in the theme of Gettysburg, you directed a movie called Christmas.
Yeah, Gettysburg Christmas.
Gettysburg Christmas, right?
Yeah.
So that's you, and you're finishing that up right now. Is that correct?
It's in post in Los Angeles. Yeah.
Right. And you filmed that in Gettysburg itself, correct?
I did, and I'll tell you, it was one of the best shoots I've ever been on. I just called all of my friends who are actors and said, "Hey, I got a part for you, and I can't pay you a whole lot." And actually, Bruce Boxleitner was in it, and he's a dear friend. He used to be married to my ex-wife, and we actually have two sons that are half brothers, we just had so much fun. I literally called old friends of mine, Kate Vernon, and I hadn't seen her in a while. And that's, I want you to play in this film. And she's like, yeah, she came down from Canada to do it. It was a great experience. And the town of Gettysburg, we had over 250 extras. We had everywhere that we went was free. We had 2, 15 passenger vans for free, donated by a church, and they're brand new vans. All the locations. It was one of the best shoots ever.
Well, that's cool. And when do you anticipate that being out so people can see it?
The premiere is in Gettysburg at the Majestic, November 27th, and it'll be December 1st. It'll be in the cinema there, and then just because it's for the town,
right?
But we haven't sold it yet, but we've got some good leads.
Excellent.
It'll be ready for this Christmas for sure.
This Christmas, and that's the plan. Excellent. Yeah. Well, I look forward to seeing that one. It sounds like you had a lot of fun. I know you were telling us some stories, and while we were hanging out, so that's pretty cool. Another movie that you did, which we talked about, where I got to see and hang out with you in DC, was Last Man's Club. So tell us. Here's the poster from it. Last Man Club, excuse me. And tell us a little bit about that. What was that story about? And then I'm going to play a trailer from that.
It was one of those God shots where I was in New York City, and I looked through I was in the back of a cab, and next to me were 4 guys in a 65 Dodge Dart. They were all in their uniforms. They were all in their 70s. They were obviously World War II guys. Because this was in the 80s at the time, and they had a plastic flag stuck in the dashboard, and they were drinking beer. They were drinking beer in the car. They didn't give a shit. They were like, and I don't know. I got a lump in my throat looking at them, and I got back to my hotel, and there was, in the New York Times, there was a story about a World War I veteran who was part of the Last Man Club. And he's sitting it was a wonderful photograph. He was sitting in a wheelchair holding a flag. And in his other arm, he had a bottle of cognac. And he said, he was the last man left. He says, but now I'm too old. I'm too old to drink the wine, the cognac. He was too old to drink it. He was in his 90s. And, the last one left from his troop, his corps, or battalion or whatever. But it was a really cool article, and it gave me the idea to write about these 4 guys in this Dodge Dart. And I think that the B-17 is one of the most beautiful airplanes ever made, especially for World War II. It's kind of a romantic. It's just a beautiful airplane. So I thought it would be great to build the story around that.
And so you wrote the screenplay and directed it as well, correct?
Yeah.
All right. So
Yeah.
let's take a look at a trailer from Last Man Club, and let's see if I can get it up on the screen. And tell me if you're seeing it.
I see it.
All right. Here we go. And can you hear it?
Yeah. Well, not yet. But okay.
Sometimes spring comes one step at a time.
Life didn't quite turn out the way I expected.
Dad, you can't take care of yourself. You haven't driven since Mom died.
Hey. It's hard to explain the brotherhood of men and the experience of war.
My son put me in here. He said I'm crazy. Do I look crazy?
I gave you all that I have.
Dear Eagle, you and I may be all who's left. Looks as though you're the last man. So I'm calling on you to make good on the oath that we all took all those many years ago.
I'm afraid your father's been kidnapped. Who would want to kidnap an 80-year-old man? Apparently, an attractive young woman in an evening dress.
Who's she?
Romy.
What kind of name is that?
This might not be a good idea.
Where are we stopping?
Thought I'd drive all night.
If you see a liquor store, pull in.
You're better than that.
No,
You're
I'm not.
Decorated war hero.
Stop it. I'm not a hero. I'm a bum.
I, I'm sorry I didn't stay in touch. I owe you my life.
They should have given me a medal for it. Isn't that a sight?
This is where I belong. I want to fly again.
Why is this trip so important to you?
I'm just looking back on life and wondering where it all went.
What are we gonna do?
We stick together.
You know, I've been up in that plane, that very plane, many, many times, and that's the one that was that crashed in Dallas.
Hold on. Let me get rid of this. Sorry about that. Yeah, here we go.
I said I've been up in that plane many, many times over the years. We made our movie on it. I'd flown on it way before we ever made the movie, and that's the very plane that went down in Dallas a few months ago. That was all over the news. Another World War II plane came in on top of it and cut it in half.
Wow.
And,
was that at an air show there?
Yep, in Dallas, the air show there. And we knew the pilots. We knew the several people that were on that plane.
Wow.
So it's kind of hard to watch. When I see it, I was like, wow. I mean, that's a tough one.
Yeah. Well, it was a very emotional story, obviously, and you took the audience on a journey because these old guys, there's like their last hurrah, and they find a way to do the impossible and get back and do it one more time. And it was great. Watching it in the movie theater, I really, really enjoyed it. I mean, you did a great job with it. But yeah, very cool.
Yeah, that's one thing I noticed about so many veterans get, and when they get older, they're kind of swept under the rug and forgotten. And so I wanted to pay homage to my dad's generation. Yeah. Through that.
So I have a choice now. I mean, if you have another movie called Bay House, of which I can share the screen. Would you like to do that? And then we'll pivot into Africa.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I haven't seen that. I would like to see it.
All right, so let's do that one, and let's watch that, and then we'll talk about that, and then we'll pivot into the other last piece of the story. Cool. So let me get this up on here.
Get away from there!
Yeah.
In the dead of winter, our blue only flowers.
But ma'am, these flowers are fake.
Soviets can make that would be unmistakable, that would advance dramatically the cause
What do you
of
think?
freedom and peace. Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
An additional 12 cases of lymphoma have been reported here at the Cowden H. Brooks Housing Project. Water and soil samples were taken this morning by local officials.
Oh shit, no.
These flowers are plastic.
Why are you taking fake flowers? Plastic flowers are the only flowers that can bloom. And toxic waste.
Oh my God.
Nothing grows in toxic waste. Did you hear that, Cowden Brooks?
No.
I want the world to know what this man did to me. He took everything from me. My family, my children, everything!
Oh my God. Mother!
I think it's the beginning of the film and not the trailer.
Yeah, you might have given me the film. So
sorry about that.
we're gonna stop there because as much fun as watching the whole thing, I don't have that time.
I think the trailer is a lot better than the film, so you know.
Anyway, you know, to credit both of us, we're both been scrambling, making this pre-production on this movie. So it's not surprising we were just scrambling to get all this stuff together for this show. So, but anyway, you did that when was that done?
That was November. Well, we finished shooting it in February of 2019. And it was in post, and my executive producer was killed in a plane crash. So it took me another couple of years to finish it. It was in theaters in November, a couple of theaters in November, last November. And it's based on a play that I had written a long time ago.
Wow.
Yeah. So.
Well, there's so much more we can talk about film, and obviously us being in the middle of pre-production. But we got another big story about to come, so I'm going to do a quick transition, and then I'm going to come to that story. So here's a quick transition. And now we're going to go to another phase of your life, and I'm going to throw up some stuff. And this is basically a map of Africa, and the Sudan is right there with the red.
It looks like it's close to the Ethiopia border. Yeah,
correct.
The Nuba Mountains. Yeah,
and here's a picture of a plane in the Sudan. And I'm gonna just you start, and then I'm gonna start showing some pictures of you and some of the pictures of Sudan. But you told me the story, and I was just blown away, and that was why I went, oh, you're gonna be on the podcast this Sunday. So. How did you end up, of all places, in the Sudan? And tell us that journey, and then we're going to look at pictures of it.
And oddly enough, you, I didn't tell you how I ended up there, so it's kind of fun.
Well, I'm going to discover now what you.
I was doing a film called Gods and Generals, so I was playing in a civil war, and it was right before 9/11. And it was only about a week before 9/11, and I met this guy who was living in Kenya. He was an American, and his father was friends with the director. So we were introduced, and we started talking. We really hit it off. And I said, "Well, why? We started talking about terrorism and stuff." And he said, "Well, there's been a lot of chatter, and something's going to happen. We don't know what it is. We can't figure it out." He gets a lot of intelligence from, a couple of different sides. And he was like, "I thought it'd be better if I came home right now." I said, "Wow, so you came home because something's going to happen, but you don't know what it is." And a few days later, 9/11 happened.
Wow. And
after the smoke cleared a little bit, I called him and I said, we talked about it. And he just offered me a job, and he said, "Why don't you come over?" So not long after that, I went to Kenya, and then from there we went to Sudan, and I just got hooked onto it. I loved it. the adrenaline, everything about it. I felt like we were really doing something. I mean, Bin Laden was based in Sudan at one point, in Khartoum.
Which is the capital of the Sudan.
Yeah,
that's why they split.
It was, yeah,
right.
So we did. We were bringing in sorghum, and it's a Christian-based organization, Persecution Project Foundation, and we were doing so many different things over there, and making a difference because he's a guy that walks the walk and talks the talk. He's just a solid dude. He's one of my best friends to this day,
he's very well known.
Yeah, I don't.
Oh no, okay,
Mm-mm.
That's a different person. Gotcha.
Yeah, Brad Phillips.
Okay.
So I can tell you a lot of things that happened. I don't know if I'm at liberty to tell you too much, but on air. But I ended up going there off and on for 10 years and staying for months at a time. And then finally in 2008, my son graduated from high school and moved over there with me. We had a lot of projects going on through them, but also I started a mosquito mist systems business along with the other stuff. Yes, that's it right there. Those are the first ones made that I made over there. I exported a lot of stuff imported a lot of my machines there, but we boxed them there and everything. And my son and I actually, we put them in a lot of village areas, compounds, even some hotels and some work compounds in Sudan, mostly in Sudan, but also we did them in Kenya on the coast and in Uganda. Did very well with them, actually. And then my son left, went into the Marines, and I ended up being in Juba with a bunch of, they're hired soldiers, mercenaries, basically. Security is what we like to call them.
I'm going to throw up a couple of pictures, and you may want to comment on them. This is one of the pictures that you sent me.
Yeah.
And then another one.
That's at a Sudanese People's Liberation Army rally. That's my son right there in the green shirt holding the AK-47. That is a spent artillery shell and a burned out Tukul behind me. Those are huts that they live in or did live in. That's a 50 cal present. That was a present from, I think it was Bush that sent that over. Father and son picture that I took. I just thought it was so poignant that that's the life in Sudan, and that's in the Nuba Mountains. And that kid, if you notice, he has a spent AK-47 shell in his mouth that he's using as a pacifier. For a pacifier, and he's covered in flies, and he's not even swatting them away because he's just so used to them on him. That's one of the captains in one of the armies.
So
camera.
Well, talk about going on an adventure and being courageous. I mean, you get over there, you and your son, you've been there for many years, both in the Sudan and in Kenya. The Sudan itself, part of that period you were there, from what I researched, I mean, you're looking at a civil war between the North and the South between 1995 to 2005 when they signed the peace treaty, right? Yeah. And then eventually 2011, they separated between Sudan and South Sudan.
That's right.
And it's like a population of 10 million people. North is Islamic, the South is Christian and animist religions, right?
That's right.
So, and then many different tribes. But, for you, you're in this world. I mean, you're a playwright, actor, director, and what the hell are you doing over there? So, I mean, you were doing a documentary, you're doing some other stuff. What was what were you trying to do? And obviously there was stories, you told us stories, I don't know if you want to share, about how you almost got killed once, and the risk of life. So share a little bit of that, because I just think it's I mean, I sat there with my mouth open, just fascinated to you, man.
I mean, well, for one thing, we live in the comfort zone in America, and we get so used to the comforts of just this life and this bubble that we live in. And what attracted me to Sudan was everything will kill you out there, literally everything. Not just the people, the troops, the everything. You can step outside your hut and a king cobra can bite you and you can die, or a black mamba. I mean, everything will kill you. You can't get too close to the Nile River because the Nile crocs can run out and get you, or the hippopotamuses. They're very fast and they kill more people than crocs. So it's something that I just felt alive out there. I just felt so alive, and plus I felt like I was doing something to make a difference. Working with Brad, we were bringing in food. We were also evacuating people that needed to get to Red Cross, which is a 3.5-hour flight just from the Nuba Mountains to the border. I was telling you last night about this one guy. There were war people too, but this one guy we pulled on the plane, he'd lost his foot because he was fishing on a fishing boat, and a croc came out of the water and grabbed him by the foot and chomped it off right there the day before. And like this little kid got bit by a snake, and as his mother was handing him up, we were in an Antonov, a big Russian plane, and it's high off the ground, and she was holding this kid up to me, and she kind of lost her grip, and I had to grab him by the bit arm, and all of the flesh came off in my hand, off his arm, like I just rolled up. It was like I rolled a long glove off like this. It just all came off, and it was putrid. I ended up throwing up. The kid lived. We got him to Red Cross, but it was gratifying in many ways. I got to really know who I was, and I don't know. Every day I felt alive there, and I felt like I was making some kind of a difference, and not just living for me, and living for Christ, by the way. Working with Brad, we did a lot of great things, and
like you said, anything could kill you there, and obviously, it was exciting and you were doing good, but there was also you had to feel that your life was potentially could have ended any time while you were there, right? You had to have that feeling.
Absolutely, 100%.
Yeah, and you also had a moment. I don't know if you want to share that story when basically your life could have ended. I don't know if you want to go there with that story, but it's a powerful one.
It was Christmas. I went to a Christmas party with this girl that I was dating. She worked for the UN, and it was very late when we left, and we'd had a few drinks, and we went up a wrong road, and we got stopped and pulled out of our car, and we had AK-47s, pointed at us from all directions, and they tore everything out of the car, and they were very agitated. That's one thing about the Dinka. They get very agitated very easily. And I think it's because they've been in a war-torn, country for 40 years. But the guy got in my face and said, "Get on your knees." And I was already like this, and I said, I get on my knees for no one. And he's like, "Get on your knees." And I just felt like if I had gotten on my knees, he was going to shoot me, because that's what they do. And I said, "You're just going to have to effing shoot me." And then my girlfriend started screaming, crying, because they didn't ask her to go on her knees. And then she pulled her lanyard out from under her shirt. She was UN, and all that. And I guess, I don't know, that was probably it. They let us put our stuff back in the car and leave.
Wow.
But it was a moment, and it was either I was either drunk, stupid, or both. But I was not going to go on my knees for anyone. Right. And I only go to my knees to pray, but I don't go on my knees for another man. And yeah, I mean, it freaked her out. I was okay with it, but he did leave me with a nice present. He hit me in the chest as hard as he could with the muzzle of his AK-47 right in the sternum, and I had this huge round bruise in my chest. But it wasn't a bullet hole.
No kidding. No kidding. Well, you know, it's hard. I mean, I think, you know, just listening to you the other night share some of these stories, you know, you realize, at least I do, and I know you do, is that, you know, how lucky and blessed we are for the world that we live in and the environment we live in and the country we live in. And no matter, you know, I grew up in poverty, but my poverty was nothing compared to the people in the Sudan. My situation was nothing like that. And, you know, and it's just like, if you don't realize how grateful you should be, especially those of us who live in this such amazing place, you know, and a lot of people don't realize how bad so much of the world has it. And, you know, you got to see it up close and personal and try and do something about it and try and help, which is, you know.
Yeah, it's, you know, it's funny to say this, but it's true. You can really find yourself alive in a place where death is every day.
Mm.
I mean, death is an everyday occurrence there. And, you know, I remember, you know, seeing kids playing stickball, and the next day, a couple of them are dead from malaria. You know, it's death is an everyday occurrence. And I used to watch them when I lived in Juba. I was across the way from a graveyard, and every day I'd watch 4 or 5 burials, and they wrap them in sheets, and they lower them in about 3 or 4 feet of soil. So, you know, there was a constant smell of death from the graveyard as well. As a matter of fact, one day, the owner of the compound that we lived in, the dog walked into the cafe, which is a dirt floor and a grass roof cafe and a bar. The dog walked in with a hand that he dug out of the graveyard across the street.
Wow.
So, but no, it was a great adventure. You know, I was in a compound with about 20 mercenaries that were doing training with some of the guards, president's guards, and some security work. And that was separate from Preservation Project Foundation. I worked with them, and then I was working on my own with my own ventures as well. So yeah, I was over there until, you know, I rolled out a bit. A couple of things started happening. First, the peace started unraveling in Juba. That was one thing. There were more and more gunfights out of nowhere.
And Juba is the south of the Sudan, right?
Yeah, right. South Sudan. But more and more, I was in a Sears tool shed. Basically, it's a Sears tool shed with a cement floor, and I had a cot, and had, you know, my computer with me, and we had Wi-Fi there. We had an outdoor toilet, you know, outdoor showers, but you know, more and more there were skirmishes in the middle of the night, you know, and so many times I had to lay under my cot, you know, because bullets would just spray everywhere. And then there was getting funky with the South Sudanese government, and they came into our compound twice and ransacked everything. Things were getting a little frayed in 2010, 2011, and I decided to go back to the States. I wanted to do a film as well. I wanted to do this movie called Card Shark Mars, based on a play. And I'd been over there back and forth for so many years. I was like, you know what? You know, I think things are getting ugly, uglier than they were, and I want to make movies. So I left. That was it.
That was it.
I've been back, but you know, to visit. But yeah, it was just time to go. I knew it was time. And you know, a year later, there was door-to-door fighting in Sudan. There was, I mean, door-to-door fighting. The whole place in Juba, the whole place blew up. I mean, yeah. I think they even tried to shut down the embassy there. They may have shut it down already.
And then eventually in 2011, they broke between the North and the South, correct?
Yeah.
And the South is
no. Well, yeah, they'd been doing it for a long time. No, they were already in the talks of doing it. I don't know if it was officially or something in the 2011, but we already had a South Sudanese government. In 2005 on, it was already happening. Yeah.
The reason I'm multitasking is because I got a crew member coming in and asking for location. So we're doing a show and I'm still working on our show. But anyway, anything you want to add, or as we finish this up, we're pretty close to the end on it. Anything you want to add to people? Just, obviously you've gone on a lot of great adventures and you continue, and I got a feeling there's a lot more ahead for you.
Oh yeah. Yeah, no, I guess that's it. I love to make a film about my Sudan experience, but if I do, I could never ever go back to Sudan again. I would never be able to go back into the country. I was, friends with the vice president of Sudan, and he was only vice president for a few months, and then he was killed. And
he was killed in a helicopter explosion
crash. Yeah. But I have a screenplay, a mini series about the experience of being stuck in the middle of Sudan. Me and my friends the rainy season began. We were dropped off and nobody could get us out. We were out of food. We were out of water. And we were roaming around in Sudan trying to get to the Nuba Mountains. And we were several weeks out there I actually had to wrestle a goat down and cut its throat and field dress it and cook it all in a couple of hours. And then we dragged the goat meat around in an igloo ice chest for another 5 days before we wound up. The SPLA took us up into the mountains to meet Dr. Garang, and
that's the Sudan People's Liberation Army, SPLA.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I'll never forget this. We're in two Jeeps and we're going like 3 miles an hour, and they're like 100 feet in front of us. And I'm like, what the hell? Why are we going so slow? It's like, we're going through a minefield. And this guy was driving the head Jeep. I mean, I felt sorry for him, man. He was just going so slow, and he was looking both, over the wheels like this, scared as hell. And, it took about 3 hours to get through a minefield up to the top of where we're based in, There's just so many stories. It's just, it's mind boggling.
It is. Well, I'm sure you're going to have some more. We'll have to do it again. We'll have some stories off of this movie that we are making here in Alpharetta, Georgia. So, hey, Bo, thank you so much. Thank you for being part of this. Thank you for joining the show, man. And thanks for sharing all these stories with the audience. I appreciate it.
Oh, you bet, man.
All right.
Pleasure working with you too.
Hey, the same. All right. I'm gonna wrap up the show, and we'll be downstairs in a little bit working on the movie again.
That's right. I'll see you later.
See you later. All right. Thank you, everybody, for being part of this. Hope you can join us every Sunday at 2 p.m. Even when I'm in the middle of making a movie, I'm here at 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time and 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Join us next week. My guest is a veteran and a motivational speaker, Alan Levi Simmons. So we'll be doing another show, and you can always subscribe to Live Courageously at my YouTube channel. Thank you for being part of this and watching the show. Until I see you next week, take care, live courageously, and God bless everybody.